Episode 4 of Pluribus starts with a look at Manousos. He's isolated, away from the joined, and trying to find a radio signal to confirm that there are others out there like him. Low on food, the collective drop by with a plate of food, but like Carol, he's loath to take anything from them. In fact, he heads out in the middle of the night and uses a crowbar to tip the plate over. However, supplies are running low though, and no amount of scavenging through the other self-storage units can make up for that. When the phone rings, we see his perspective from Carol ringing from the plane. When she curses him out and hangs up, it works to spur him on to find out more about her. At this point, we're 7 days and 8 hours out from the collective takeover, and Carol leaves the hospital and takes the cop car parked outside. She drives back home, where she's horrified to discover a whole bunch of people have worked tirelessly to help patch this place up. It's as if the hole was never there. When she ushers them out of the area, Carol heads into her office and writes up what she knows about the join so far, with different rules including how they're always honest and happy to please her. Wanting to try and learn more, she ushers in one of the joined from outside, a guy by the name of Larry. He recites extracts from her books and compares them to that of Shakespeare. Of course, that's not the same sentiment shared by everyone, but one of her avid fans, Crazy Moira, was on the verge of committing suicide until she read Carol's book. This is why it touches her so deeply and why it skewed the join's perspective. As for Helen though, she thought Carol's books were like cotton candy. She was grateful for the life they built together through selling this crowd pleaser, but she never really thought much of her writing. Her unpublished novel though is a different matter. Now, Helen wasn't a fan of her work, but spoke to Val and agreed to get this published because it would make Carol happy. They also realised it wouldn't hurt her career either, so no harm, no foul. It's a tough pill to swallow for Carol, and she eventually ushers Larry out the room. And this confirms one thing though, that the joined can't lie. Carol shows up to see Zosia next in the hospital and outright asks if the join can be reversed. It would appear that it can be, and this gives Carol ammunition to set to work and do just that. She breaks into the hospital lab and grabs a whole bunch of gear. The joined give her some heroin when she asks for it, but in reality, she uses sodium thiopental to concoct a serum to loosen Zosia's lips. She tests it on herself in a really amusing scene before arriving to see Zosia in hospital. Injecting Zosia's IV with the sodium thiopental, Carol takes Zosia outside, and as soon as it kicks in, she demands to know how to put things back to how they were. However, it doesn't take long for others to cotton on to what she's done. Handcuffing herself to Zosia when the joints surround her in a tight circle, Carol tries to get an answer, but the mob chant "Please Carol" over and over again. It drowns out Zosia's voice. Unfortunately, Zosia goes into cardiac arrest not long after. Shocked by what's happened, Carol lets the others work to bring her back. So after last week's lower chapter, Pluribus delivers a really solid episode this time around, with lots of tidbits to chew over and plenty of plot development. We know now that the collective can be reversed and that this joined situation isn't permanent, at least not in the sense of an individual being unable to come back from the dark side. The scene involving Larry with Carol asking him questions is pretty important too, because it seems to show that not only can the joined not lie, they also struggle with the value of information. Of course Shakespeare isn't at the same level as Carol's books, but because of the messy joined hive mind, there's no consistent value added to anything. Instead, what we get is this murky shade of grey, where everything is wonderful when it's really not. The ending sequence is pretty eerie too, not least because it's clear that the joined know Carol is stumbling onto something important that could disrupt their entire plan. It's a nice way to close things out, and the overhead sequence, with the joined all suffocatingly tight around Carol, is a nice way of almost echoing a petri dish with a virus surrounding a healthy cell. I'm not a scientist though, so maybe this analogy is a bit inaccurate. With the boundaries established though, it's clear that Manousos has realised there's another individual out there like him. The joined are clearly keeping their distance on purpose from him too, not wanting to get caught with convulsions and potentially killing more of their numbers. But is Manousos even worse than Carol? There are plenty of interesting tidbits to chew over, and Pluribus certainly leaves the door wide open for next week's episode. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.